Welcome to Masterminds Maintenance, a podcast for those with new ideas in maintenance. I'm your host, Ryan. I'm the CEO and founder of Upkeep. Each week, I'll be meeting with a guest who's had an idea for how to shake things up in the maintenance and reliability industry. Sometimes the idea failed, sometimes it made their business more successful, and other times their idea revolutionized an entire industry. Today, I'm really excited to have Graham Fonseca here on the show. Graham is the business unit manager of online solutions at E27. Welcome to the show, Graham. I'm really excited to have you.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. I'm excited to be here. My first podcast.
It's the best one. The way that we always kick off the show, Graham, is for you to share a little bit more about yourself, your background, and how you were first introduced into this, wonderful field of maintenance and reliability.
Back when I graduated, I worked for a company called Lakeside Process Controls, and pretty self-explanatory. We controlled processes, right? So I sized valves and regulators and that kind of thing. Any fluid flowing through a pipe is what I worked with, right? And tried to control. So after a few years in that role, there was an opening on our reliability team. And what really piqued my interest about it was kind of the IIoT aspect of it. And this was, I guess, 5 years ago now, when IIoT was just kind of a buzzword. People didn't know about it. You'd say it and people wouldn't know what was going on. And so I thought that that's the way the industry was heading. So it really piqued my interest. And I applied for the role and joined the team and got introduced into this world of reliability. And so when I started and working on these IIoT projects, we partnered with the company E27, right? And so we were using these ultrasonic sensors, these permanently mounted sensors, to figure out whether there were leaks in valves. And then fast forward 5 years later, love the technology, love the company, and now work for E27. And I'm a business unit manager. Unfortunate acronym, but really, really great role where I'm trying to bring out the online solutions portion of our business and kind of bring that IIoT aspect of it to ultrasound.
Big fan of E27. Graham, like you had mentioned, this whole acronym around IIoT has been around for a long time. I feel like I've been hearing that acronym for 10 years. Where do you feel like we are at in that growth journey of IIoT? Have we just started? Are we in the middle? Or do you see wide mass adoption?
My personal belief is we're somewhere still at the beginning of it where we're trying to get our hands on where it applies and how to apply it. I think the first application of it was trying to apply IIoT with one system for a whole plant. And I think now what we're seeing is, we have these little piecemeal things where one company can do part of an IIoT solution, another company can do, if we talk about reliability, one company can do ultrasound, one company can do vibration, one can do infrared. And we can piecemeal these all together. And I think that's the part where we're at now, where we're trying to figure that out and how to get plants into this IIoT world from the ground up. So definitely not at the end yet. It's definitely still in the early stages. And that's my opinion on it.
I know. I completely agree with you. We're just at the very early stages. And it's kind of funny because I had mentioned, I think you mentioned too, this terminology and acronym has been thrown around for a very long time now, but yeah. I still feel like we're at the very, very early stages.
For sure.
Maybe the question for me to you, Graham, is why do you feel like it's been so slow to adopt, or why do you feel like we're still at the very early stages?
The first thing is, I think just a complicated acronym to start. There's no reason for there to be two I's in a row for an acronym. But then second of all, I think it's the price point, right? At this point, everyone understands, or a lot of people will understand cloud-based storage, cloud-based platforms, wireless technology, permanently mounted sensors, but it's the price point that's really catching up, where in the past, if we were to monitor our assets and try and do it remotely and try and build an IIoT platform, it was very expensive. And you wouldn't necessarily want to do it on any of your equipment. Then we got to a point where we could do it on our critical assets. And now we're getting to a point where we can do it on our balance of plant. And as it becomes more commonplace in plants, it'll just be more commonplace in people's, knowledge base, right? And people will start to know about it and research different things and want it in their plants as opposed to being scared of it.
Yeah, no, I definitely see that too. Price is coming down. It's making it more widely accessible and adoptable, gets people's foot in the door and enables them to see the value versus having to spend, $1 million on a small portion of an entire company.
Exactly.
Rollout. So
exactly.
I've definitely seen that too. For our listeners, where do you see the first entry point? If I'm a newer facility manager, want to get interested in industrial IoT, what's the first use case that you always recommend for someone getting their foot in the door with industrial IoT? What's the problem that they're trying to solve most commonly?
how do we convert this existing technology into a way that is just more useful, more beneficial, and saves us time? I think time is the biggest thing that we focus on, right? And I'll try and relate it to smartphones, right? Where when do you want to convert from a flip phone to a smartphone, right? Would you rather pull out a map when you have to go somewhere, or would you rather just use Google Maps on your smartphone? Would you rather, bring a camera around with you, or would you just have your camera on your phone? Like, what would you prefer? That's the biggest selling point is like, the technology isn't changing. It's just we're giving you a better way to, with IIoT, we're giving you a better way to just digest that and saving you from doing those non-value added tasks, which essentially saves you time.
That's actually really interesting. So what I'm hearing is like you're talking about replacing legacy systems with some sort of lower cost industrial IoT software that you can monitor on a cloud-based system versus a local machine. That's actually very interesting. Are you seeing a lot of companies actually remove out their old systems and replacing them with new ones? Or are you seeing more redundancy first as the first foot in the door to industrial IoT?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. I think it's more redundancy, right? You don't want to replace anything. We don't want to replace, people with computers. You don't want to replace old equipment with new. It's just that redundancy, right? So just ultrasound as an example, we still have a use for this ultrasonic gun where you can use this ultrasonic handheld piece of equipment. You can go around to your assets. You can analyze it. You can get the health of bearings. You can tell if there's leaks. You can monitor steam traps, all sorts of different things. But the point is, there's other technology out there that can allow you to do all that from your desk, right? And so if you use that as kind of a first pass, then you still have that handheld equipment to go in and say, hey, let's monitor this further, let's analyze this further. So it's really just adding on to it and giving you more tools in your toolbox to become that owner of your own reliability program.
That's awesome. Yeah. And again, I think the redundancy just helps a ton because now you're getting two different systems. You're being able to track more metrics. And it isn't this big project to like strip everything out and then replace it with new. It's also, it kind of leads me into this next question, Graham, around like the timing of this. When is it the right time for companies to start looking at, replacing old systems with, industrial cloud-based remote condition monitoring? Like, how do you know when it's the right time, and what are some signs, indicators that say, this is probably the right time to make the switch?
The way I'll answer that, if I take it back to my smartphone analogy, which I hope it's a good one, I think it's a good one. When's the right time to switch from a flip phone to a smartphone? Like, is there an answer to that, or is it just when you're ready to approach this new technology, right? Everyone would probably rather save the time than having to go find a map and point it out and write out the directions, or the old way we used to do it with printing MapQuest, right? If you ever did that, where you Google something and print out all the maps, right? I don't know if there's any indicator. I just think the time is now because the technology is there and the price point is there. It's just when are you ready to bring your reliability program to the next stage and I guess make it more efficient.
The time is now. There's no better time than now.
Hope I don't sound too preachy, but I think it's there, right? The technology is there. It's just a matter of just doing it.
Yeah. I love it. The whole industrial IoT game is fascinating. We see a lot of projects get kicked up, but we also see a lot of projects fail as well. And so maybe the question here for me to you, Graham, is how do you recommend companies implement these types of solutions so that they're set up for success? And what are some reasons why implementations actually fail around industrial IoT?
From what I've seen, at least, starting too big is the biggest reason why people fail, right? And if you're going to implement a piece of technology into a plant, do you start from implementing it, worldwide or nationwide or whatever it is, or do you start with one specific plant or even just one specific asset, right? So I think figuring out that sweet point of how do you implement this technology and then prove it out, and then talk to the right people who you need to get approvals from and say, hey, look, this technology is saving me time or money or keeping us from downtime or whatever it is, right? So I think just starting small or starting at a point where it's not overwhelming and you can kind of roll it into the current way you do things without kind of taking up too much time and letting it fall by the wayside.
And kind of to that point too, I think what we've seen too is all centered around training. When we see a lot of our customers and people in the industry adopt these new technologies, it's always great when you have the right people to analyze the data. Like ultimately,
right.
This whole industrial IoT, it's all about like collecting sensor data, but you don't just collect data to collect data. It's to actually take action off of it.
Yeah,
And a big portion of it is understanding why are we collecting this data and how are we going to use it to inform better decisions.
for sure.
So maybe the question here, Graham, is like for our listeners, what's a good resource for them to learn more about, let's call it vibration analysis? Where's a good place to learn more about, ultrasound analysis?
There are obviously companies out there that'll help you do it and help you get that expertise in house. I think the more important part is maybe taking a step back and, if you're bringing this technology in, partnering with a company who can give you those key insights and teach you those things, right? It may not be something, we've been doing ultrasound for 50 years, right? So it's not something that's necessarily teachable over like a few days or a week or a year or whatever it is. It's something that's going to take time. So I think if you're going to implement this new technology, just partnering with a company that isn't just going to give you a data dump or give you a piece of equipment and say, run with it, right? It's partnering with those companies that are going to spend the time with you and help train you, help you become the owner of your own program.
There's tons of resources out there. You don't have to try to go learn it all by yourself, but actually partner with the companies, the actual vendors, obviously one of them being UE Systems, to try to gain knowledge from them and utilize your vendors as a strategic resource to help you, learn more and take better action.
Yeah, exactly.
Graham, you've been in the industry for a little bit now. I'm sure you've learned a ton throughout your time here. What's something you wish more people knew about the maintenance reliability industry?
If you ask this question a lot, I'm sure you get this response a lot, but just that it's important. I wish more people knew that it was important. It's worthwhile to invest a little bit upfront in reliability rather than put out fires later on, right? And maintenance reliability always gets the last little bit of investment. And it's always a hard sell to say, look, nothing happened. Like, look, nothing failed. And so your wins are just nothing happening. And I just wish more people knew that nothing happening is a great thing and a great thing to invest in.
I mean, that's such a good point. And we talk about this quite a bit, which is like, if maintenance reliability does their job and does their job really well, no one hears about them.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe to that point, Graham, like what are some ways that, you've seen your guys' customers and people in the industry really showcase their wins in a positive way? That's not like, hey, something broke and we fixed it.
Yeah. And I think that really comes down to, a reliability manager who's really, set on proving out their new technology or whatever technology it is that they have, and keeping those use cases, keeping track of, when I implemented this new technology, I saved X amount of time, or I reduced X amount of non-value added tasks, right? Or over the course of the last year, we had X amount of downtime. And then since we implemented this technology, zero downtime or way less downtime, right? So it's really that, and then bringing that to upper management and showing them like, look how much we're saving. It affects the bottom line. It affects my employees, and it's making their time more efficient. So it's really those types of things.
Awesome. Love the tips, tricks, and recommendations there, Graham. Where do you go to continue learning? Where do you go for educational content? Where do you go for new ideas?
Anywhere and everywhere. There's a few podcasts that I listen to, try to stay up to date on news, set reminders or set alerts in Google based on keywords. I try to learn something new every day. That's kind of been my goal for 2021, especially being in lockdown. What else are you going to do anyways? So I've made it a goal to try and read or listen to or, watch the news about something new. And what I find is that even if that something new doesn't maybe necessarily directly impact reliability, I find a lot of the times, if I'm listening to a podcast on, let's say, lifestyle, I'll find ways to relate it back to my work. So, just keeping an open mind and listening to different types of news sources, whether it's podcasts or Google searches or reading books, whatever it is.
I love it. Yeah. Learn something new every day. That's a great goal. Graham, can you share with all of our listeners all the different ways they can connect with you and follow you on your journey?
Yeah, I think for me, it's just LinkedIn. So Graham Fonseca. There actually is another Indian, Graham Fonseca, who's an engineer on LinkedIn. So just make sure you add the one that works for UE Systems. There are two of us in Canada, so just make sure you find the right one.
All right. Thank you so much again, Graham, for joining us. And thank you to all of our listeners for tuning in to today's Masterminds in Maintenance. My name is Ryan. I'm the CEO and founder of Upkeep. You can also connect with me very active on LinkedIn, or shoot me an email directly at ryan@onupkeep.com. Lastly, you can find me in the maintenance community on Slack. It's the largest community of online for maintenance professionals all around the globe. We host weekly conversations, contests, all centered around maintenance. And I hope that you all join me and us on Slack in the community. I really hope to see you guys next time. And thank you so much again, Graham. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. That was fun.